Hello friends, welcome back. This is Rajneesh and today's session is about central authentication mechanism that we are going to implement in our open source data center. To implement a central authentication mechanism, I'll be using 389 directory server, which is an open source version of Red Hat directory server. The main features that it provides is multi-master replication. We can have multiple master 389 directory servers which can interact with each other, and we can update on any one and that will be replicated to other directory server. Chaining and referrals. Chaining and referral means, for example, you have a separate directory server for India and a separate directory server for US. You the chaining can be done. For example, you have three directory servers. One is corresponding to India, one is corresponding to US, and one is generic. So the generic directory server is going to redirect or provide a referral to India in case user is trying to fetch or user is trying to get the user database from India. We'll have a demo of it. Right now we are going to simply install this Red Hat directory server, and we'll have a lab for that. Roles and classes of service. So it provides a flexible mechanism for grouping and sharing attributes between entries in a dynamic fashion. We'll have a lab of all of these, so we'll see about it later. So it can limit the resources by the bind DN. Bind DN means actually the credentials that you are using to connect to the directory server. You may have different credentials for connecting to the directory server, and definitely they have different resources assigned to it. Multiple databases. For example, we have a single directory server in which we have a database for multiple companies. For example, company 1, company 2, company 3, even that is possible. Password policy and lockout. If we are talking about central authentication mechanism, the most important thing we need to look into is the password policy. After how many days the password should expire? What should be the password complexity? After how many failed login attempts a user password should expire and a user should not be able to log in anymore? It also supports TLS, transport layer security, and SSL. In case you are trying to connect to the LDAP server directly using LDAP protocol on port 389, any data that you are trying to fetch from the LDAP server or send to the LDAP server is sent in plain text, and that can be snipped and that can be used to find out the credentials and the database that is flowing through the internet. So it also provides SSL and TLS, which creates a secure layer when transferring the data between the client and the server. So what are the main components of it? One is LDAP server or directory server. The other is directory server console. That this is the user interface that is used to connect to the 389 directory server or directory server database. SNMP agent can be used to monitor the directory server. So here is the diagram that I fetched from Red Hat's documentation. So this is your IDM console, 389 IDM console or directory server console, that provides you a user interface that you can use to connect to the directory server admin. You can use this console to manage directory server, admin server. Actually, admin server is used to start or stop directory server, which uses external programs for it. And the directory server can also be directly managed through it. You can create entries inside it, and effectively the directory server stores the database in two formats. One is user directory, it includes the company details, users, groups, machines, and everything, and other is configuration directory, which itself stores the configuration related to the directory server. Okay, so coming on to the lab, here we have this infra server. The first thing that we'll be doing is we'll install the first thing that we will be doing is installation of the packages, that is yum install 389ds. Okay, one more thing I forgot to describe is we have to install EPEL repository for it. So this is the EPL repository that I added to get the packages from, and finally I installed those packages or copied these packages into my local repository, which I named as 389 repo. For your case, you'll have to enable and install EPEL repository, and I'll show you. This is very simple. You can just Google for it. Okay, so here we come for it. This is the location and EPEL release 6.8. It doesn't depend upon your architecture, that's why it's named as no arc. And you need to install this. This is actually an RPM. This can simply be installed with RPM minus UVH. So you need to do this before you install 389 directory server, because this is not available with the Red Hat distro or even the CentOS distro. Okay, so the next step is yum install 389 directory server. So 389 directory server includes 389 admin, which is the admin server that I was talking about. It can be used to start or stop the directory server. 389 admin console is the user interface that we will be using to connect to the directory server. 389ds base is the main directory server, and this is 389ds console that we'll be using to coordinate with the directory server, and this will be used to coordinate with admin server. Let's press Y. In the meantime, I'll also be needing a console, that's why let's try to connect to this vSphere client, enter the credentials. Okay, we have installed it. So the next part is the packages have been installed. The next part is we have to install the directory server or to set it up. So to set it up, setup ds admin.pl, and there is minus minus help that you can use to check out for the variables that it provides. Keep cache is a variable which keeps the INF file that will be generated while setting it up. So I do use it. Would you like to continue with the setup? Yes. So it says two things. It has two processors, notice fine. 730 MB of physical memory is available to the system, at least 1024 is recommended. This is our lab, so it works fine, but in the real world scenario it should be at least 1 GB. Keep alive time is right now 20 minutes, which is high, so we can reduce it, and we should reduce it because this may lead to the congestion. Connection will still be established and it won't be dropped and for nearly 20 minutes, and new connections cannot be established. So right now the value is 20 minutes and it's displayed in seconds. Let's modify it, and comment it as for 389 directory server, so you know why you modified it. Let's reduce it to 5 minutes, which comes out to be 300 seconds, and to implement it just run the command sysctl -p, and now if we see this variable, this is 5 minutes. Okay, file descriptors are 1024 only. Let's increase the file descriptors. See, security limits.conf is the file that can be used to increase them, and star for any user, final limit no file. If you don't remind of the variable, you can see it here. No file, max number of open files. So we have to increase it to, let's say, 102400. Right, and just create a new session. ulimit -n, and here you can see that the file descriptors, maximum file descriptors available to any user would be around 102400. So do you want to continue? No. And I'll start this installation once again. Just copy it and paste it. Yes. Now you can see that the last two warnings, TCP keep alive was 20 minutes, is no more there, and the second corresponding to the file descriptors, that's also not there. The two things that you can see is it has two processors, that's a notice, that is fine, and the one is your RAM is less than 1 GB, which is fine. Would you like to continue? Yes. It is providing me three options. Express, it will be asking me the least amount of things. Typical is the typical defaults that we'll be using, and custom we'll have to specify more of the variables. So let's continue with the default, which is true. Computer name is infra.labs.local. Okay, how did it fetch out the computer name? Hostname? No, hostname -f, the fully qualified domain name. So this is the host name and this is the domain name. Computer name is fine. System user, let me see if nobody is there. Yes, nobody user is there and it's fine to use it. Okay, there are two options. Either if you want to segregate a user, that is fine, otherwise you can continue using the user nobody. Just press enter. System group is nobody. Do you want to register the software with an existing configuration directory server? No, because this is the first directory server that I'll be creating it. Admin ID is admin, and admin password, let me keep it admin at 123. Admin at 123. Administration domain, labs.local. Directory server is going to run on port 389, which is the default for LDAP. Directory server identifier is infra. Suffix, if we are talking about the domain labs.local, so it will be DC stands for domain component equal to labs comma domain component equal to local. In your scenario, it could be labs.com or your company name.com. For example, it will be DC equal to company comma DC equal to com. Let's continue. Directory server manager that you will be using to connect the directory server to and will be working with. Let's keep the password manager at 123. 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 Okay, passwords do not match, and it's not. Control B to move back. Manager at 123. Control B to move back. Okay, so DC equal to labs comma DC equal to local. Directory manager CN equal to directory manager MANAGER at 123. MANAGER at 123 will be the password, and the default admin port is 9830. Just press enter. Are you ready to set up the servers? Yes, and it will start working on it. ls minus ltrh tmp. So here you can see that there is one file which is setup something something.inf. If we have a look into it, it's not yet completed. Okay, now if we have a look into it, this is not the one. 320. So I hope this is the one. Yeah, so this is the one. It consists of the details that we used when setting up this directory server: domain name, admin user, admin password, full machine name, username or group name with which it will be running. Admin interface will be running on port 9830 with these users. Admin server, the port that will be listening to. /d hashed password. Root dn is directory manager that has complete access to it, and password is manager at 123. Let's keep a copy of it in a safe place so that in case we forget the details we already have them. ldap.inf chmod go minus read write executable, so no one else can read it. Okay, now the other thing that is required to do is to open the ports. Let me open a console for it. Enter full screen, yes. And let me open the console. 389 console. This console can even be run from any of the machines which is outside this network, or in case it's in case the directory server is accessible through public IP. So this 389 console is not compulsory to be run on the same machine. User ID cn equal to directory manager, because this is the root DN. Password manager at 123, and admin URL is http infra.labs.local sorry infra.labs.local colon, I think it was 9830, and here you are connected to the management console now. So this is the GUI that this 389 directory server provides. Here is the domain that you created, labs.local. This is the admin server, and this is directory server. This is the instance that we created. So coming on to admin server, you can just right click on it and open it. What admin server provides us is you can stop a directory server, restart a directory server, config admin server, and logging options, manage certificates. We will be looking into the certificates and other parts in the next session, how to make it work on HTTPS, and all things will work on HTTPS after that. Directory server, we can start, stop, and restart directory server. We can back up a directory server using this interface. We can restore a directory server. We can manage certificates, log in into a directory server as a new user, and this is the configuration section where we can see the data. We will do the replication in the next session. So as of now, this is the UI that it has provided, and other thing that we need to look into is opening up of the ports. In case this server is going to work as a directory server for my infrastructure, which is 192.168.1.0, I need to open the firewall rules for it, and LDAP server should be accessible through it. So first thing I do is I create a new chain which is for LDAP, sorry, LDAP, and IP tables minus L input minus N minus minus line number, and it comes out to be, you can add it on 7. IP tables minus I input 7 minus J, send it to LDAP. So now first of all LDAP rules will be checked, then PXE rules, then NFS, and then logging will be done. Okay, so now in the chain IP tables minus I LDAP minus P TCP minus minus D port 389 minus S 192.168.1.0/24 minus J accept, and service IP tables save. Okay, this is done. So what if I need to configure a client to authenticate against it? Okay, let me try to use test VM for it. Okay, I got it. The port is not yet open. Okay, before that, let me create a user and name it like something like ldap1, or okay, let me create a user for it. Users and groups, this is for searching. Here I am on the directory server. I double click on it. I move to configuration section. In the data, I see dc equal to labs.local, and here, okay, this is the user root. So the first thing I need to do is, under dc equal to labs comma dc equal to local, I need to populate it for the users and the groups. Okay, for this we have multiple options. One thing that we can do is we can do the migration from the migration of the current users to this, but I'll do that later on. Right now, let's create a new organization. Oh, sorry, this is the one, labs. Okay, sorry, we have to come to the directory, and here we can see people is there, group is there. We can see these groups, and let me have a look into it. POSIX group, it's not there, so it will not be visible. So for the demo purpose, let me create a group and a user. New group, group name my ldap1, test ldap group. Okay, static group. mm, okay, POSIX group, yes. In case I want this group to be visible to that particular virtual machine or to any machine, I need to make it POSIX compliant, so that it will be available the same as etc groups. So let me make it 1001 and click on OK. Now I created one group, and let me create one user also. New user Rajneesh ldap. So the user ID R Sival ldap, whichever you want to keep. Let me give the password, and the most important thing is this is a POSIX user with UID 1001, GID that we just created, home directory, home, rcval ldap, login shell, bin bash, and gcos, the name, and ldap user. Okay, so I just click on OK. So we have one user and we have one group. We are done with the directory server, and let's try to configure a client to access these users from the ldap. Okay, so I come to the test machine, I power it on, and I create a session with it. Let it boot. It's not yet booted. Open console. Okay, now I can log in into it. Root. Okay, now I want this machine to authenticate against the infra ldap server. First, let me try telnet infra.labs.local colon 389. Telnet command is there, is not there, I need it. Yum install telnet. I want this command just to make sure that the connection is fine. Okay. Mm. The thing that is happening is the public key corresponding to this package is not available to me. One thing I can do is I can install the public key for it. yum.rappos.d CentOS media.rapo. Let me see if I have this key present in it. Yes. So etc yum.rappos.d labs.rapo. I'll add a line which will say here is the GPG corresponding to it. Now it will verify and install this key. Okay, so telnet is there now. Telnet 389 is working fine. Cat etc password, I cannot see any user like rcval, and there is no such group like that. I need to fetch these users and groups from the LDAP directory server. So what I do is authconfig TUI use LDAP, use LDAP authentication. Next, it says we are missing a package NSS spam LDAPD. Okay, let's move back and install the package. Yum install NSS spam LDAPD. Okay, now coming back to it, use LDAP, use LDAP for authentication. Click on next. Use TLS, no as of now. infra.labs.local, and base DN will be DC equal to labs comma DC equal to local, and we click on OK. Get ent password, and right now you can see that there is one more user which is named as rscival LDAP. Where was it fetched from? From the LDAP server. Okay, to make sure, let me add one more user. So we have configured our client so that it can authenticate against the LDAP server. I'll create one more user. New user Rajneesh Sival. So by default it uses rcval. Let me give it some password. The important thing is enable POSIX user attributes. 1002 will be the user ID because user ID 1001 was already used by the previous user. GID you can use the same. Home rcval, login shell is bin bash, and gcos your name or anything like that. Just click on OK, and now you can see this LDAP user which is present in the user database of this test VM. Let's try to log in into this machine. And here we can log in into this test machine. I think I was able to make you understand. And second thing, get ent group, and here you can see that my ldap1 group is there, which was fetched from ldap server. Okay, to make sure, we can create one more group, rcval posix group, make it 1002 as the group id, and save it. Coming on to people, moving on to rcval, and if you want, you can modify its group id to 1002. Now it will belong to the group rcval. Get end group, and here you can see one more group which was again fetched from ldap. So what needs to be done now is, you will be creating users and groups in the directory server, and they will automatically be available to all the ldap clients. Now one more question arises. As soon as I logged into this server using SSH, I was not provided my home directory. Why? The reason is, it was not created using a regular user add, because that has the facility to create and populate the user's home directory with the default files which are present in etc scal. So either I can enforce these client machines to create the home directories as soon as a user logs in. How do I do that? /etc pam.d ssh. Let me see how it works. So as soon as user tries to log in into this machine through SSH, these are the authentication modules or the session modules which are involved. Inside the session module, I'll add an entry. In the session module, I can see that password auth is used. So I just move to it, and there is one PAM module which is mk home dir. Yeah. So what I'll just do is, in the sessions section, I just copy it. Okay, I come to it, and in the end I just copy and paste this line which says, when the session is created for any user, there is a required module which is spam underscore mk home dir, which sees in case the user's home directory is not present, create it. Scal, copy all the files present in etc scal to the user's home directory and umask with which it will be created. So right now user has complete access to it, group has complete access to it. Sorry, this is for suid sgid, they are not attached to it. So user has complete access to it. For group and others, write access is not there. So what I need is, for group it's fine, but for others I don't want any kind of access. So 7 means all the bits for the users, for the others will be masked. Let me try to log in into it now, and in the meantime let's keep it open. I create a new session with the ldap user. Now you can see that the directory home rcval was created. ls minus ld home rcval. Now you can see that user has complete access to it because this umask was 0. Group write permissions are not available, and for others there is no access, all the bits are masked. So I think we are done with the generic installation of 389 directory server. Right now we are using the protocol LDAP, which is not safe. So in the next session we are going to configure SSL, or we'll be using LDAP's protocol to connect to it, and users can authenticate through it. And uh, yes, third part will be users will be authenticating, or the clients can authenticate only after binding as some user. So there'll be different sessions. I hope you have understood till now. We created or installed a 389 directory server. We created a user RCval on it, and this we configured this test VM client to authenticate against LDAP, and we created an entry in etc pam.d password auth for the session, so that it creates the home directory in case it's not present for that user. I hope I am able to make you understand this. Thanks for viewing the video. Have a good day.